All right, welcome into a unique edition of the Buffalo Plus podcast presented by BuffaloPlus.com. Mike Catalana, Dan Fates, I'm Jenna Cottrell. It is summer. We're getting ready for the start of training camp, but we thought we would introduce you to us as we get ready for the start of another NFL season. We've been covering the team for quite some time. Mike, maybe a little bit longer.
Well, hold on. 27 seconds.
27 seconds in, and I commented on your age, but we're going to get into how we started covering the team, maybe some of our favorite moments, and then we also have a little special thing at the end coming up about obscure things that we are elite at, because as Mike said, he has a pretty long list. But also, I want to get out in front of this. If you're not watching the podcast, you might hear a little audio from a fan. I only bought an air conditioner for one room. So that's why.
You got two rooms, Mike. She's living up pretty high in the hog.
Only one gets the air conditioner. It's not the office. All right. So Mike, how do I not insult you when I ask this?
Go ahead.
You've been around the team for quite some time.
Yes, a long time. I came to Rochester and ended up covering the Bills at the end of 1987. So really 1988 was my first year. And I tell everybody this because for a point of reference, my first game covering the Bills was 1988, September. It was Thurman Thomas's first game as a pro. They were playing the Vikings. And I have to tell you, I had grown up in Philly going to games there. It was always loud, but I had never experienced anything like being on the field for that Bills-Vikings game in the 88 season, a season that would end with that team going to the AFC Championship game, much like this last season. But it was crazy. And I thought, oh my God, what have I walked into here? And it was the start of it all with Jim Kelly and Andre Reed and Steve Tasker, Bruce Smith, all those guys. So I came at the right time to start covering the Buffalo Bills in 1988.
Ooh. Jenna, we were -3.
Say.
All right, so Dan, yours was
not even a glimmer in the eyes of our parents yet.
Okay, Dan was 3 seconds into his part of the show. That's fine. I fully embrace a great amount of experience, and I do not hold your youth against you guys at all.
No.
Well, it's a lot of times we joke around that we're getting back to it now. We're all back at the station now quite a bit, but in the sports, a lot of times there's story times with Mike. It's Mike, and Mike can name box scores. Mike can name plays. Mike can name players that this guy did this. And we're like, I don't even know who that guy is. And then we look it up and Mike's right. So Mike has a vast knowledge of Bills coverage for sure.
It's definitely true. Dan, I feel like your first game was not in 1987.
No, 2016. I just had to go back to make sure what it was. That was my first year covering the team, and it was the first time I was in Rochester covering the team, and it was Rex's last season. So I remember that, and their first game was in Baltimore. I was at Baltimore. I was actually in the press box that game, living up high on the hog like a Mike Catalana was as the newbie. But that, LaShawn McCoy, Tyrod Taylor, just kind of that dynamic of a really weird season that as that season went on, it got weirder and weirder as, Rex gets fired, 2 days after Christmas and just kind of Anthony Lynn takes over. Mike, where it's the privy conversation. It was peak Drought. And I know that maybe that's just my perspective because, Mike, you were there when – you had Ralph firing guys and Mike Malarkey and all of that craziness. But to me, Rex saying they're going to have to drag me out of this building kicking and screaming. And then 2 weeks later, he pretty much looks like a guy that was so defeated.
Wearing gray on gray.
It was the saddest Monday press conference ever. He didn't have a hat on. He didn't have a Clemson helmet. And it was like, this dude's gone. He is gone. And I actually was there. We had heard he got fired. We went up to the stadium, and his truck was there, and it was a giant billboard. And we're all sitting there like, he's still here. Like, he got fired at 11 a.m. By the time I got up there, it was like 3, and his truck was still there as he's cleaning out, and he drives by me as I'm filming his billboard driving past.
Enormous truck.
Crazy. And Jenna, the story I heard about that day was that Rex may have been coming in a little bit later than some of the other coaches. They were all in a meeting already. When Rex got there, he was informed that he was being let go, and that he walked in the defensive coaches meeting, looked at his brother and said, "Come on, Rob, we just got fired. We're out of here." And they left. Now, I don't know if that story is 100% true. One, it should be.
Yeah.
And two, it's likely true.
Yeah.
And the fact that he hung around the rest of the day and at his truck, his Bills truck, is so Rex Ryan that he's a memorable character in this franchise.
Can I say the story that only maybe a few people have heard of the finishes that day? Because we were told to go up there. I was working at another station at the time. We were told to go up there and to find Rex. That was our job. We were told to find Rex.
And you went to the Big Tree Inn.
So everybody's in the media room, and I'm sitting in our station car just waiting. And it's like, I'm texting, like, lights are coming on the car. Like, Rex is walking out. Like, so I film him, he drives by. And we had public record people's addresses. And so we knew where he was probably heading. And I'm in a station car following Rex Ryan back to his house. And he pulls in his driveway. There was another reporter waiting outside. We went up there with a camera, politely knocked on his door. His dogs were barking. And Rex politely answered the door and said, "Hey, guys, no offense, but I'm not talking to you." And we said, "Have a good one, Rex." And that was the last time I had ever seen Rex Ryan in person.
Yeah. Wow, Dan, you covered Rex closer than his defense covered offenses that year.
That was the day before he had 10 players on the field when Miami scored the game time touchdown.
That happened twice.
And then he punted. And then he punted in overtime with 3 minutes left.
Yes. Yep. That was 2016 was the same season that I started covering the Bills in Rochester. Dan and I actually dabbled in covering the Bills when we worked together in Elmira, but covering them was,
hold on. Yes, I remember that. That's when you violated rule. You started as the rule breaker that Jenna is. You didn't think we were going to let that go by. First time I meet Jenna, she's in the press box. Within minutes, she's breaking the rules already. Had to get all the protocols for the media changed right away because of Jenna.
There are rules now that are in place because of Jenna Cottrell.
That's actually true. I was down on the field shooting the game, like recording highlights for the game, and
no credential.
I was not credentialed to do it. I thought I was just being really, I'm a go-getter, Mike. I thought I was doing the right thing.
And you know what?
Turns out you can't do that.
You pretty much resemble all the other photographers because they're all
I
blonde
kind of
women.
stood out a little bit. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they found you. Oh, they found you.
Yeah, they did. Oh, they did. So yeah, I started covering the team in 2016. It's so funny. You guys are talking about the first Bills game you covered. I feel like I blacked out. Like I don't remember the first Bills game that I covered.
A lot of those games weren't memorable.
I was gonna say there's been so many of them. No, I would think my takeaway from that season was just the hilarity of Rex Ryan. And we tagged it the Grout fit because he would wear the matching gray on gray sweatpant look. And as the season went on, it was like a more disheveled version of Rex Ryan. I mean, we won the off season. There's so many moments. Actually, Mike, you and no, that was with Sean McDermott. I'm getting ahead of myself.
Yeah.
I was just say we were there in Jacksonville.
That was the Walt Patulski season.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was the Clemson helmet season.
Is that the dog biscuits? No.
The dog biscuit season. Yep. I mean, it was peak circus of what I thought. And we always just remember, I used to remember driving up there to the stadium and being like, I wonder what we're going to cover today. And you would just hold your arms out and Rex Ryan would drop you a story into your lap. And that was the best thing ever. And that's why I was sad when Rex left. Not from a standpoint of an X's and O's or anything like that. Fans are like, oh, can't wait. If I never see Rex Ryan again. He was a story every single day. He made our job so easy.
Do you remember when he was like, yeah, we brought in Rob and I got my lap band removed? Like, oh my.
Yeah.
Because they said they won more when he was fat. Anything for the team.
He's just such a character. And then, of course, Sean McDermott comes in 2017. And Mike, you've been around a lot of head coaches. I guess what did anything stand out to you about Sean? Do you remember that? I remember that press conference.
Yeah, I remember the press conference. You know, when I look back at it, you know, it was, if you just look in hindsight and you realize what he's done now, maybe you'd get some certain things from it. But he said a lot of things that you'd normally get. He was deferential to Whaley, Doug Whaley, which is the smart thing to do. But the reality was he was taking over until Brandon Beane came in. And but you also saw the elements of the Andy Reid type of coach that is in control. Like if you saw Andy Reid's first news conference, like he's not the same guy that he is now, but you can see parts of that were there. And I just thought Sean McDermott, as always, was composed and ready to go. Again, there's some doubts about him at the time.
Yeah.
I mean, like you guys talking about, Rex comes in and, you know, is this thing on? It's about to be on. And, you know, that kind of stuff. That was not Sean. It still isn't Sean.
No.
All he did was win. He took that lousy team to the playoffs. I mean, they were lousy.
Yeah.
And what I remember, too, is he could have lost the team that year when he made the decision to bench Tyrod Taylor, and he played Peterman, and it was a disaster. I give LaShawn McCoy a lot of credit that year because LaShawn hung in with him, hung in with Nate. He backed up everybody, and then they obviously went back to Tyrod, and they ended up making the playoffs and losing, but at least it ended the streak. So it was a little rocky for Sean that first year and even into the second year, but obviously he's righted the ship pretty well.
Yeah, I feel like I remember from his introduction of just like, wow, there is... Like, I feel like sometimes the pendulum swings, you know, back and forth, and like going from a guy like Rex to a guy like Sean, who is, you could tell he was a lot more disciplined, a lot more thoughtful in what he said. I do remember the one funny moment, though. I believe he said there are players on this roster. I do remember him saying that and being like, well, that's kind of funny. But for the most part, no, I think, you know, the Bills were ready for a change, and having Sean McDermott be that guy, you were like, okay, let's see what he can do. And then just to see, Dan, the immediate buy-in, especially starting at training camp.
Yeah, it was what you talk about, that swinging of the pendulum, because you go back from Doug Marrone.
Yep.
And then the pendulum swings, and the Pugulas get their first hire, and it's Rex, and he talks about how he, you know, wowed him on his yacht and all of this stuff. And then the pendulum swings back from, you know, pretty much Marrone was awful with the media. You had Rex, who was this character that would, I just remember all the times he would swear during his Wednesday press conferences and then have to be like, sorry guys, like my bad. And it's like, well, can't use that quote now, Rex. Thanks a lot, man. And then to go back to Sean, and honestly, I didn't know who Sean McDermott really was when he was hired. He wasn't the one guy that I was like, oh, we got to get him. And it was this, you know, up and coming defensive coordinator when, you know, we thought we had the defensive coach that was Rex that just didn't work out. So it was kind of confusing there, but Mike makes a good point. Definitely some slip ups along the first 2 years and for him to right the ship and to stick it out. And again, I just remember talking to Jenna when, you know, he was talking about, you know, we got to win with character. And I was the first person. And I just remember being like, Jenna, character doesn't get you wins. Like talent gets you wins. Yeah. The New England Patriots had guys murdering people on Tuesday, but then they would win on Sunday. And it's like, well, there's not a whole lot of character in that locker room, but they got a lot of talent. And I was wrong. I can fully put my hand up and say I was wrong. This is what what he built took time. Yeah. And that was the whole process. This is going to take time. All
right. And this is great, but let's get back to Jenna. Because, you know, we talked about you breaking rules on the sidelines. You had a couple other moments on the sidelines that got you a lot of attention for different reasons. So tell everybody about those two things.
Yes. So I'll start with, it would have been 2017, the 2017 season. The Bills were playing the Bucs at home, and Jameis Winston dropped back. The Bucs were about to score a touchdown. Jameis Winston dropped back. And like, I was on the sidelines recording the game, and the sidelines are really tight, as Dan knows. Mike wouldn't know because he's in the press box. But for photographers, it's really tight on the sideline. So there's not a lot of room. So I was standing right at the goal line because there wasn't really any other space for me. So when Jameis Winston dropped back to throw a touchdown, I got screened by the ref. And then there was a leaping Tre'Davious White and Mike Evans coming at me that Mike Evans ended up catching a touchdown. They both ran into me. I fell down with the camera.
Oh you didn't fall down. You flew backwards, and we saw it in slow motion on the Fox broadcast, and it was played on every network in the country.
They put a crying Jordan meme over my face. I was like, that's valid. I'll accept that. So that happened.
Wait a minute, hold on. That happened. Everybody's checking on you.
Yes.
I come downstairs at the end of the game after you went back shooting the game and everything. Like, oh, that was something. And I said, oh no, this is going to be a big thing.
Yeah, and I thought you were being dramatic. I was like, okay, Mike, whatever. And then it really did. It blew up quite a bit. And the backstory also is, I'm in remission now, but I was diagnosed with cancer in 2017. And so that season was really the first time I'd kind of been back after going through my treatments and being back on the sidelines. And I can smile saying this just because I was going to say, I can smile saying this just because, I am healthy now and I had an amazing team of doctors and support from my friends and family. But it was like, are you kidding? Like, I've had such a hard year. Are you kidding me? Like what?
Well, hey, Mike Evans tweeted at you. Trey talked to you about it in the locker room. Yeah. Everybody got a kick out of it, and they know you're tough.
My mom texted me, and she was like, Jenna Margaret. I'm like, oh, I'm in trouble. I knew I was in trouble.
That's the other thing, too, is that, like, people always ask us, like, what's it like being on the sidelines? And, like, Mike made a point to it when he started. Like, there's nothing like the speed of an NFL game on the sidelines. Like, even if you're in the front row, it's not even close to see how big and fast and, as Jenna proves, dangerous it is being on those sidelines. And a lot of the times, too, in the end zone, because where you are at Highmark Stadium now, they make you kneel because the stands are so low. So you are literally just a sitting duck.
So I didn't kneel because I was like, screw that, I'm not going to kneel.
Breaking rules again.
Well, see, this is the other thing, too, because
I'm happy I didn't kneel because I feel like I would have been decapitated. Yeah.
Well, that's the other thing, too, is that, like, we're all watching this game. We're all friends, even though we work at different stations at the time.
Yeah.
We, like, all instantly, like, reached out to Jenna to be like, oh, my God, are you okay? Because we all saw the replay.
Yeah.
And then, like, there was that part of me that was like, it's that Happy Gilmore scene where you're like, she shouldn't have been standing there. Like the first, I had it.
The truth comes out.
I waited like 2 or 3 days to be like, hey, Jenna, like, we all know that nobody was standing at that spot when Jenna was the last one there for a reason. Because every player's trying to get to the pylon. So, like, it's kind of a dangerous spot to be. Yeah. And there's Jenna just like,
I was like, oh, this is good. Well, I was so nervous because my boss was so strict. I didn't want to miss a touchdown.
Darn right. And you got the play and you held on to the camera.
I did.
Okay. And then the second one where there was another big receiver, but instead you kind of knocked him down.
Oh, my gosh.
So tell the story.
That was in Houston. So that was that 2018?
2018.
2018. Yep. Yeah, I was in Houston and I was on the sidelines getting ready. The Bills were playing. Josh Allen was quarterback. And, when you're down on the field, Mike, Dan, you know this, like before a game, you can hear there's music going on, but you can hear the conversations that the players are having. So I overheard a conversation that I thought Bills fans would want to hear. So I tweeted about it and I got a lot of a reaction about it. And then I got a lot of reaction from the Bills about it. So that was intriguing, but no, I think
go on.
So you tweeted
like
because Kelvin Benjamin was asked by Josh to run routes.
Do you want to run routes?
Right.
No.
And
I was like, well, that to me was very interesting because I was like, here's this guy that's supposed to be the Bills' #1 wide receiver. And look, other players have different pregame routines. I don't know if maybe he just had already ran his route. I don't know. But I thought that response was something that Bills fans would want to hear.
And it was accurate based on the way the guy played. At that time, he was down to a half a biscuit short of being a tight end, which he's now gone full biscuit.
Yeah.
And look, the Bills were mad because, they were trying to protect their player. And I get it. They're trying to protect their player. It looked bad. Now that game ended with a Nate Peterman pick 6 after he
Josh
had
Allen
actually
got
thrown
hurt.
a touchdown, Josh got hurt. So
Yeah.
that part of the story sort of got shoved aside. It was a pregame thing, but they weren't happy. But the truth is the reality came out. He was gone at the end of the year, and they only played marginally since then, is now trying to make it in the league as a tight end. But Jenna did her job on the sidelines, and they weren't happy about it. That happens to all of us at different times. So it was a good job.
A rare Brandon Beane swing and miss. Like we talk about how good he's been. Like the Kelvin Benjamin was a swing and a miss.
It was early in the process. He was trying to find something. They had familiarity with him, but some of it is up to the player too. You know, and there's a reason that guy has not played that much or at all, really since that time. So you did not walk in. You sprinted into your time covering the Bills.
Now that we kind of say it back to back to back, I'm like, woo, okay.
Yeah.
Let's make my presence known. You know what was a really fun game, though? Dan and I were both there on the sidelines. Dan was working at another station at the time. Was the snow game.
Yeah.
That was 2017.
17.
Yeah, it was part of the making the playoffs.
That was right before you went. That was right before you were diagnosed, Jenna.
No,
that was right before because another sideline story.
No, that must have been 2016 then.
No, the game was in 2017.
2017.
Yep, she had.
And I had already been diagnosed.
Yes, and
you can tell the story about in 2016 if you want.
Well, there were a couple of times when Jenna wasn't feeling well, and these are behind the scenes things
where Jenna, I was diagnosed. So
you're flying up and down the sidelines, and I'm getting touchdowns left and right, and I'm like, Jenna's lazy. Like, what a bum. Like, Jenna's like, I'm tired. I'm not feeling well. I'm like, where's your work ethic? Like, we used to work together in Elmira, New York. Jenna hired me how I first got my start in this business. I'm like, Jenna's really getting soft. And like 2 months later, she's got cancer. And it's like, by the way, my bad, Jenna. You were being lazy.
I was just saying.
Yes, the snow game was wild. We're sitting there. We're filming the pregame. There's not a flake of snow on the turf. Long story short, that game was Peterman versus Jacoby Brissett. With the starting quarterbacks.
Yes, and then Joe Webb came in.
And Joe Webb came in, but I always remember betting the under for that game was like 39.
Of course,
and
you remember that.
And it started to snow, and then it's like, oh, it's snowing, and then it really started to snow. And Jen and I walked out of the tunnel. At the time, it was New Era, and you kind of walked out there, and you couldn't see to the goalpost. Like I'm not talking about the far. I'm not talking about the far goal post. I'm talking about the one that was like 6 yards from you. And I turned around and I texted my friend and I was like, put more money on the under.
Yeah.
And then obviously the play that really kind of broke the drought, not only is the touchdown that we all know LaShawn McCoy running into the end zone, but it's Joe Webb on 3rd and 14 to Deontay Thompson, who catches the pass that forces overtime, all of these things. There's also the Micah Hyde play where the Colts went for 2. They completed it. They threw a late flag, and Micah Hyde sold a pass interference on a pick play. The flag came like 3 minutes late. All of those things happened. Jen and I talk about that game quite a bit as what was the craziest thing you've done, covering the Bills, and that one's definitely up there.
That was one of my favorites. I will also say a little inside baseball talk. Dan and I were on the sidelines. Again, we weren't working at the same station, so we were both recording the game. And Dan was getting so mad. He's like, oh, my camera, I can't film the game. I'm like, Dan,
Jenna didn't care.
We can't film the game. Sit back, relax, get a hot toddy. Like, I was like, this is great. I have a perfect excuse not to.
Mike, what was it like for you?
Well, I will tell you, that game was a little rough because in about the third quarter, they ran low on coffee. And I'm telling you, it was a struggle, but I made it through and got there. Yes.
The wine and cheese pairing was off.
Now, that year also, I was down in Miami for the last game of the regular season. And we had a freelance photographer helped us with that game. And a crazy experience, and for once something positive, because I obviously was covering this team back when they were winning championship games and going to the Super Bowl, but standing outside the locker room, waiting to hear the results of what was going on, and there was a bunch of reporters, and it was people were trying to get it on some kind of TV, and then we were listening to the sound, but it was delayed, and we were listening to the sound coming from the locker room, and somebody yelled touchdown when Boyd scored the touchdown for the Bengals. And then a few seconds later, we heard the place go crazy. And then we were pushing them. No 10, 15-minute cooling off period. When that was done, we were all storming into the locker room. And it was fun to see because we had, for me especially, being with that team back when this would happen all the time. And it got to the point where even playoff wins were not matter of fact, but met with sort of, okay, we won. Well, this was craziness.
Yeah.
It was probably the wildest locker room scene I had seen since the first team went to the Super Bowl. I mean, because it was crazy in there. So it's fun. That became a stretch of where now this team has become a lot more fun to be around.
Yeah.
Dan, I was on the sidelines.
Yeah.
I was on the sidelines of that game too. That's the most crazy. It felt like they were a bunch of college kids again.
Yeah.
And it was because the game starts in just a weird way. Jay Cutler did the first series, and then David Fales came in. Like, just a weird dynamic. And then the Bills it was kind of in cruise control. They kept kind of showing the score up on the Jumbotron. Lots of Bills fans, as there always are in Miami. But the kicker was that you're not really allowed to have your phone if you're on the team on the sidelines. So they were kind of trying to follow along the scoreboard, but I was allowed to have my phone. So they kept kind of I'm checking the score to see, like, hey, what's important? And the guys are constantly asking me, like, what's the score? Who's winning? And the game ends. It got weirdly close. There was actually an onside kick in that game that the Bills had to recover. It was like, oh my gosh, what's happening? And I just remember at the time it was Eddie Yarbrough and some of the other guys had taken my phone, and I have a picture of them holding my phone after the game, being like, "We gotta get to the locker room. Like, we gotta watch this. Like, we gotta get to the locker room," and just being like, "What is going on? Like this is such a unique set of circumstances." And like Mike said, standing outside the locker room and hearing the locker room erupt, and everybody's like, "Why are they cheering? What? Oh, they scored! Like, oh my gosh!" And it was that was it. Kyle Williams. He had scored a touchdown in that game.
Yep.
He had the rushing touchdown.
Had his sons in the locker room. Yeah.
Just a wild scene. That was definitely probably the craziest thing I've covered.
That is so cool. That to me, I feel like there's been some really cool moments covering this team. I wasn't in Miami, but just seeing the video of that locker room, you're just like, that is a culmination of so much emotion.
So I can take you back to another moment where I'm on the sidelines and I have a cell phone that looked like a brick about this big. I'm in Nashville, and the Titans do the Music City Miracle play, the home run throwback, and we're on the sidelines. They're not showing the replay in the stadium, so everybody's just waiting for them to make this call, and the players are asking us. I'm calling back to the TV station, and everybody back there is saying, it's a forward lateral. It's going to be disallowed.
Oh my!
And the players are asking us. Like, I remember Rob Johnson, those guys, Reuben Brown, they were all there. And I'm like, our guys are saying it's forward. It's forward, because it really looked forward. Yeah, I still believe it's forward, no matter how many engineers tell me it wasn't. And then the eruption when the referee Phil Luckett comes out and announces that the play stands and it's a touchdown, and the place went crazy and Bills players were stunned. So another time where they didn't have a phone, I had this thing. I probably had to literally like crank it up and dial it to get it to work. But that was right in 2000. But that was another Bills moment that went the other way.
There's so many moments like that where, well, not like that, but just in general, like I don't think people realize how much emotion is on the sidelines.
Yeah.
Like during a game, you don't always get to see the cutaways unless you're at the stadium, but even that, you're not obviously right there. Like, these guys are so passionate, just talking about everything, like going into things. I remember after actually in Dallas, it was Thanksgiving. Yeah. Mike and I, we were at the game. And that was a big deal because obviously Thanksgiving game in Dallas, that's huge. And after Josh Allen and the Bills had won, like walking off, and Josh Allen had gotten done with his national interview, like walking off, him eating the turkey leg, and like players just coming around, like just, it was like they won the title. You know what I mean? Like, they were so excited. And just to see how excited they all get and how much they pump up one another, that's another really cool moment where I'm like, that was a great moment for the franchise.
Yeah. I mean, it's you feel it greatly in those the times that go great and when it goes the other way. And that's why I said that Titans game was probably the angriest locker room I'd ever been in. They felt they got cheated. Other times it's quiet. It's really quiet when you go in there. That feeling of, despondency a little bit, like the Houston game was that way, where they lost in that playoff game and they thought they obviously should have won. And you do sense, and it, but you really feel it, to Jenna's point, how much these guys do care, especially in those moments. It's not about money there. It's not about anything else. It's about winning. It might as well be a high school game. I mean, because it's just about winning that game and moving on. And, they feel the disappointment. And, I was there for 4 of those at the Super Bowl, which was unlike anything, because they had very different reactions to all those losses. The wide right, then the getting, manhandled by Washington in the second game. Again, a little anger in that game. Getting destroyed by Dallas in the third one. And that was more embarrassment. And then the last one was close, but it was more like, I don't know if we can keep doing this. So you do get those feelings when you go in there.
And that's the funny thing too, is that, being on the sidelines for some of these games, I'm sure fans that are listening have, maybe they've traveled to a road game for where the team has won, or, been at a home game, like big moments. It's almost those definitely quiet moments. Like I go back to, when the Bills marched down the field on the opening drive in Houston, Mike, like that place, you could have heard a pin drop when John Brown throws it back to Josh Allen. And I'm sitting there like Brian Dable for president. That was the most masterful engineered opening drive of a playoff game. Yeah. It was totally silent. I go back to when Josh Allen threw the touchdown pass right at me to Tyler Kroft in Pittsburgh on the Sunday night game.
Yep.
That place, or when he completed the long bomb to John Brown after Renegade played. Like there were moments where both of those places were so loud that my camera was breaking, that the audio had peaked, and I had to turn my camera off and turn it back on. And then there were times where it was just so quiet, you could almost hear Josh Allen like yelling in celebration, where you're like, he's 50 yards away from me. A minute ago, I couldn't hear the camera person next to me. Like those moments where it's really cool when Josh scores a touchdown at Highmark Stadium and it's really loud. It's almost cooler when it's the deafeningly quiet moment where you're like, wow, that was really cool.
Yeah. No, it's very true. I mean, there's just been so many moments for this team, I feel like, as we go through. And Mike, you've been to the playoff games as well this year. I know obviously they had, quite the crowd for the Baltimore game, the Colts game. How important do you think, like, as this team gets ready to continue and, they've built so much through the process, like how important is having that fundamental ability to win in the playoffs? Like we talk about how this team has been poised and how they're getting ready for another really tough season, but they have high expectations. Like how you've seen so many teams early on when you were covering the Bills be able to win those big games.
Well, that's a good point, because it always bothers me that people from the outside would refer to the old Bills teams as losers because they lost the Super Bowl. And in my mind, I saw them win. You think about what you got to win to get there. 11, 12, 13 wins, and then winning 2 or 3 playoff games. And I'm remembering the championship games and thinking, I see them win, going to Miami to watch them blow out the Dolphins the year after the comeback game against Houston. Then they go to Pittsburgh and win, both without Jim Kelly. And then they go to Miami when the Dolphins think they finally got him and they blow them out. So I think of that Bills team as always winning those games. And the Super Bowl is sort of segmented like a whole different thing. And that's what's weird about it, because I know they lost the biggest game, but that team was made up of Hall of Famers and gamers, guys who just knew how to come through. Now, I will tell Bills fans this. I mentioned my first season was 88. I was doing weekends here. I was not at the championship game, and they lost to the Bengals. They came back the next year, had a up and down year with that was when the bickering Bills were going on, and that was a mess. I mean, Jim Kelly was calling out players, and Thurman Thomas said our problem is quarterback. Like, people want to forget a lot of this stuff that went on, and it did. And that team made the playoffs and lost a battle. Still the most exciting playoff game I think I've ever been to in Cleveland. And it was devastating because they had gone from the AFC Championship to getting beat in the first playoff game. After that, they came back and went on the run of 4 straight Super Bowls. So it can go that way sometimes. But I think of those players as winners. And I think this team has the components there, and you saw them in those first 2 playoff games where they found ways to win. They didn't play the way they wanted against Kansas City, but the playoffs are tough, and you can be great and still not win. I mean, that's the way it goes. But I do think they have that in them. It's just going to be getting through that door, which we'll find out if they get through it this year.
Yeah. All right.
And I think it starts with having an adult in the room.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing that has changed since, Jen and I really started covering the team was, they had insert whatever adjective, unflattering adjective you want to put for Rex Ryan. But and I go back to it where, Sean McDermott can be, very cliche, does, keeps things very close to the vest. But look, there hasn't been leaks that really come out of this building. This thing is very tight knit. And Mike, I'm sure that there were other times when it wasn't that case up at One Bills Drive.
It was a mess. I mean, they were all over the map, and they were trying to go do shortcuts to get there. One thing that I thought about, and Jenna, remember being at that game when they lost to Jacksonville, and what really struck me, and Jenna, I'm trying to remember if you might have still been shooting on the field, but I remember Sean McDermott being outside the locker room, greeting every player coming back in after they lost that game. And I remember thinking that had to be hard for him. He's thinking about his players. It's great when you win. Everybody's top step guy, like in the dugout, right? When you're winning. But they lost, and they got handled in that game. They had a chance, but they didn't win. And there was Sean standing there. Every guy, he waited till every guy came in. And I was impressed by his ability as a guy who had never been through this before as a head coach to do that. And many of those guys are not on this team. It wasn't about that. It really was about building culture. And these are the things, if we can give you any insight, that we've all talked about things that we've gotten to see, and then with some perspective on what happened later, and you see what this franchise has done, I think those were the building blocks of where they are now. And Sean McDermott deserves immense credit for that.
And Mike, you talk about not being there. He'd never been in that moment. How did he handle it? I also go back to the Monday after the loss to Kansas City in the AFC Championship game. Again, had never been there. How does he handle it? Well, he's answering some questions about us, and he gives what I still think is the best Sean McDermott answer I've heard from him in his 4 years in Buffalo, is where he talks about, your guys are one player away or one piece away. And he said that if you guys think you're one piece away, he goes, you're dead wrong. He goes, you have to start over. Yeah. He goes, every season is due. He goes, they don't just get to pick up at the AFC Championship game next year. They have to go through it again. And when he said that, I was like, man, that's a veteran quote from a non-veteran coach, from a guy that's only been doing.
But he's been around. I mean, he had a lot of success, and he was with Andy Reid, and I think he had such respect for him and for Ron Rivera and being part of those. But you're right. It's different when you're the guy.
And that's it, Mike, because Sean McDermott, you've seen it so much come out of New England where they try and be Belichick, and they try and do it there, this is how I'm going to do it. Sean McDermott, I can't give him enough credit for piecing together who he is as a head coach, not just copying them, but he's taking a little bit of this. He's taking a little bit of that. But he's his own coach. He's not Andy Reid. He's not wearing Tommy Bahama shirts, and he's not Ron Rivera. Like he's a blend of those guys, and I just give so much credit to that, to understanding it was that comment that answer was wiser beyond his years of being the guy that has to answer that question to the media. Really stood out to me. And, he wasn't grilling me for answering if my question wasn't specific enough.
I just think that is who he is, though. I think he's always been, we kind of joke about how like Sean McDermott, his guilty pleasure is an ice cream sundae.
Well,
Monday Night Football is his favorite TV show.
Monday Night Football is his favorite TV show.
The embedded video the Bills put out about the draft. And Kim Pagula likes to bake, and she was bringing stuff in, and all the coaches, GMs, everybody's eating all these cookies and everything. And they cut to this shot of Sean, and Kim Pagula, I think if I remember this right, she says, "Sean, are you eating ice cream?" He's got this bowl and he's eating, and he says, "No, it's Raisin Bran." And I thought, never does he really doesn't. But I will say, You make a point. Sometimes fans would say, we need a guy like Bill Cowher. We need a guy like John Gruden. Well, if that's who Bill Cowher is, and it is, and if that's who John Gruden is, as it is, I think players respect that. I think they respect that Sean McDermott is who he is all the time. But I do think he's, in moments, he's adjusted. He is absolutely adjusted. He trusts these guys enough.
Yes.
They've earned his trust, and that's what makes you a great coach. And what'll make him one of those guys is to keep winning and get to the Super Bowl and win a Super Bowl, because I think he's got it in him.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. Very authentic.
Yeah.
Very authentic. A quick question for you guys. Who do you think has been your favorite Bills player to interview?
Oh, I got it.
I have mine.
Okay. I think we're all going to say the same person.
Well, I have a current guy, and then I have guys from the past.
Okay. All right.
Now Tasker will tell you, since I did the sidelines for the preseason for 20 years. I worked with Steve all the time, and we talked about this the one time, and I'm like, no, you were not my favorite guy. You were a special teams guy. What am I talking to you about? So it was nice to be able to take a little shots there. But there were guys back there. Cornelius Bennett was great back in his day with the Bills. Henry Jones was an excellent interview with the Bills during that time. Other guys were the bigger names. Andre would just dismiss us. Thurman would yell at us, like you had all those.
Yeah.
But in the current times, it's Mr. Chick-fil-A himself, Isaiah McKenzie.
Ooh, okay.
Isaiah McKenzie's the guy. For me, he's the guy.
Yeah, I get that. All right, Dan, what about you?
So, like, the most, and maybe this is where Jen and I would both agree, one of the best guys to interview, like, to get insight was Lorenzo. Like, I mean, Uncle Zoe was just, he would do, and like I said, normally when they open up the media sessions, like more behind the base, inside baseball, they open the media sessions, you kind of all go to the big lockers in the locker room. And a lot of times players only want to talk once, and you have to respect that. So a lot of times if it was Kyle Williams, he would wait until everybody came over. And then if you had not talked to him, he'd be like, sorry, I'm done. Right. And he'd be like, all right, I missed it. So you kind of always had head on a swivel. Lorenzo would talk to 5 different groups one-on-one for an hour. He would stay there the entire time, ask you how everybody's doing. He was just phenomenal. Yeah. But my favorite player is not on the team anymore, but Nickel Roby-Coleman he would give you the most honest answer and then would look at you like, uh-oh, I probably shouldn't have said that. like it was the one when they didn't know who was playing, whether it was Jacoby Brissett or if it was Edelman or if it was Tom Brady. And he just said, like, yeah, that guy's kind of good. Like, I don't really know who he is, though. I don't know how to say Garoppolo. Like, he just went off and, like, didn't know how to say his name. And he was like, does that sound disrespect? He's good. He's good. He'd, like, look around. He was so candid and honest. He was definitely my favorite player I've ever gotten an interview. Yeah.
He was a character. He was pretty funny. I think for me, I love talking to Trey White because he is so insightful, especially after signing his contract extension. Like the answers, you can tell how much it means to him. Such a family guy. But then you also get to see him just be himself and how funny he is. I can't remember what game when he was like picking up the sheets that blew across the field, like pretending to look at the defensive strategy or whatever, like stuff like that, where you're just like, he's such a character. You know, him talking about Steve Irwin and how he used to watch Steve Irwin growing up. And like, he is such a likable person. And it's just, he is one of those guys that you're like, I enjoy hearing the insight that he has. And, you know, when he first got to Buffalo, I remember because we, you know, when we're in the locker room, you get to see everyone's locker and they have personal stuff up there. And, you know, he had a picture of the gold jacket up there. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, this is a guy that, and you can tell how dedicated he's been. Yeah. Just things like that where you're like, he is really funny too. Yeah.
And his enthusiasm. I mean, I was there at the draft in Philly when he got picked, and we were very fortunate that he was still there because not all the players are there and the Bills had traded back. Yeah. And man, he was, I mean, just you could feel it out of the guy and you could hear the way other people talked about him too. Yep. And you're right. He's been great. And I didn't mention Lorenzo because we went to high school together. So I didn't want to.
Mike wishes.
And Micah Hyde's another guy too, that if you give him a thoughtful question, he will give you a thoughtful answer. He doesn't, and like I said, he'll bust balls with the media being like, yeah, I don't really like you guys asking these questions. But so he's another guy that's really good.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's very true. All right. So we're going to do a little changing of lanes. So we wanted to make this a little fun too. So we're having things that you're elite at
Elite.
in a way to get to know us better, because I feel like people are asked, like Buffalo Plus, like Mike, Dan, Jenna, like we don't know really anything about you guys. So this was our way of kind of talking through the history of the Bills and how we have intersected our way through it. But Mike, we'll start with you. Things that you're elite at.
So do you want the whole list?
No, let's go. We'll do a couple. Why don't we do a couple? One person says one.
Okay. Well, I would obviously pontificating would be number one, but I'm not going to say that. I'm going to give you one. Parallel parking.
Ooh.
Oh, sorry, Dan.
I would take you. I'd be on the podium at every single Olympic. Every single Olympic. If parallel parking was an Olympic sport, I'd crush it.
Dan.
So ridiculous.
No. I got you beat.
Yes.
You know what Mike Catalana is elite at? Not using his blinker.
Well, they're just suggestions. Signal lights are just suggestions.
We took a legal left-hand turn when we were on our way back from, where were we coming from? Oh, the draft in Cleveland.
It could have been anywhere.
It really could have been.
Dan, so you're going to say you're the second best parallel parker you know?
No.
I'm the best.
Yeah. I parked in it. I go to New York all the time. My daughters are there. I parallel park in New York. It's just a skill. You just whip that car back around. I don't need the stupid pack up camera. I don't need the beep. I know where I'm going. In, out, done. One shot.
Okay. This needs to be a competition.
Yeah.
Jenna?
I'll go with.
Oh, he's going to go. You're
Jenna.
not going to.
No. Because I can't. I gotta go. Go ahead, Jenna.
Okay. So I would say I am elite at making a meal out of nothing in the fridge. Like, when you're you're like, I'm just not going to go to the grocery store. I'm just going to like hold on.
But see, this is accurate because most of that is because you're cheap.
Well, I have another thing on here that says avoiding spending money on big ticket items.
Like food?
like an air conditioner, maybe like a car. I hemmed and hawed on buying a mattress, all of those things.
Oh my God.
Don't like to spend money. Well, no, everyone's been there though, where you're like, I'm going away on vacation. Like I am. Like, I'm like, I don't want to go to the grocery store. So I'm elite at making a meal out of nothing.
That's a good skill.
But it's food that I like to eat. So I don't know if anyone else would.
Well, that encompasses a lot of things.
That's true. I'm elite at eating too.
She's also elite at finding sushi in any place in the country. She will find sushi.
I love sushi.
Yeah.
Jacksonville, Florida, strip mall. Sure.
She found it. Dan, why don't you go second? It's going back around because I jumped the gun on your parallel parking mistake.
Well, this is one that this is one that Jenna always is amazed at me. Remembering movie quotes or like quotes from stand-up like comedy routines.
It's incredible.
Like I got that down. Like that's one of the things where after Jenna and I are done laughing, she's like, "How do you remember that one?" And it's every line. It's the Replacements. It's Dumb and Dumber. It's every movie. I'll send them. And I'll send them a stand-up comedy routine or something. Be like, "This is funny." I'll text it to them, and then the next day, I pretty much just recite it for them. We don't need it. We all just laugh about it again. So that's probably one thing that besides parallel parking, I'm a more elite parallel parker, but
yeah.
Okay, quick thing. So when I was working in Elmira, Dan came in for an interview. I was working at the ABC CBS station. We were hiring a sports reporter, and there's a stand-up comedian, Kelvin James. Look, I know like Paul Blart Mall Cop. He has like a really old stand-up. Sweat the small. Is that Sweat the Small?
Yeah,
Stuff?
Sweat the Small Stuff.
And Dan, I love that. I used to watch that growing up. I thought it was hilarious. Dan was like reciting lines from it, and I was like, "That guy's gonna get hired." Like I was like, that solidified a job. That's how your career got started. Was Kelvin James Sweat the Small Stuff.
Yeah, and then just a little one because Mike took my parallel parking. I wrote down 3. Eating sunflower seeds from years of playing baseball.
Wow,
I can probably put half a bag in my mouth and get through all of them.
Congratulations.
Like just really good.
Yeah.
See, I don't. Yeah, no, I can't.
I have a bar game skill. Pop a shot. Spectacular pop a shot.
Really?
Yeah, I will crush people.
Okay, wait. We have to do that. That needs to be done.
Yeah, just go. You two play for second. I will parallel.
I'm going to play for third,
and then crush you on pop a shot. Come on.
Okay, good.
But
Yeah.
your one finger goes the other way.
I was
Like,
gonna
how
say,
does that?
show them your
What do you
finger.
think the key is? Yeah, and blame Benny Blunt for this finger. Benny, if you're watching, he broke my finger in high school, and it just stayed that way.
Ballsinger finger.
Watching.
I did not know that about you, Mike. The more you know.
Papa Shot is spectacular.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah.
I'm really good at, let me see. So actually, this is kind of random, but you know, like the ladder drills that people would do, like receivers will do.
Yeah.
I'm really good at that. I actually have very quick feet. I know you're not going to believe me, but I will like YouTube wide receiver drills, and then I'll do the ladders at the gym. And usually someone will comment. They'll be like, wow, like you have really quick feet. And I'm like, you know, thank you.
That's the kind of compliment you're getting at the gym. She's not quick.
I'm going to go.
I will say, mine is Mike just dunking on you right there. The fact that we'll be at training camp and they always have like the metal ladder that like they warm up with. And there has been multiple occasions where Jenna's been like, I want to go do that ladder. And it's like, Jenna, like that's what you want to do? Like there's all this stuff. It's like, can I just go do this ladder real quick?
I usually will kick around the soccer ball. I played soccer growing up. So I'm like, yeah.
Now as we leave, I'm going to add an elite skill I'll add one for Jenna.
Okay.
No one that I've ever seen can drop a second golf ball and hit it faster than Jenna.
Tell me your nickname for me.
What's that?
Quick draw.
Quick draw. Oh, yeah. She'll hit the shot wherever it goes. Good, bad, boom, second ball is down.
Okay, here's my thing. I started playing golf last year, so I want the practice.
I'm giving you a compliment. It's a skill.
It's a skill? Okay.
Before we could even say, boom, the ball's down, it's hit already.
Great shot. There's another one that's already in the air, too.
She can hit it. We'll hit it in the air.
It's so true. Okay. Yeah. All right. Dan, do you have another one?
No, that's it.
That's it. Mike, do you have another one?
No, I just had the extra one for you.
Okay. I had one more. I'm really good at Amazon returns.
Oh.
I am like
you're not as good as my wife. That's like she could make she could make a living off customer service. She'll buy me a shirt. I will spill the shirt on the shirt. And she's like, I'm taking that back. I'm like, you can't return it. I spilled on it. It's my fault. She's like, no, that's not how this works. Quick story. You know, like the lights that you like string on like around your porch, like to be outside. Yeah. Renee's like, oh, like they fell. Like they all fell, shattered, million pieces. I was like, that stinks. We got to go get new ones. She's like, no, I'm going to return these. They're a million pieces. She takes a Target bag just of shattered glass and returns. And the lady's like, what do you want with it? She's like, I want a new one. We got new lights. What? I don't know how my wife does it.
That's incredible.
It's incredible. It's incredible.
That is actually a true good skill to have.
It's incredible.
That's pretty good. All right, we'll take that.
Wow. Do you think we've impressed people with this?
I don't know.
Probably lost subscribers.
Yeah, probably.
Hey, you know what? If you're leaving comments, leave your skill within reason.
Yes.
Leave your skill.
Make this, children could watch this. So
it's
please
still PG rated.
Plan appropriately. Obscure task that you're good at or something like that. Well, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe.
Subscribe.
You know what? I have to add in really quick. The one thing that Dan is not elite at is spelling.
Oh.
Just grammar in general.
Oh, I have another skill for myself.
Sarcasm.
Well,
Find and peck.
Obviously.
That's how Mike types. Yep.
I mean, I never really.
You can imagine it goes poorly.
I can read it, but yeah, hunt and peck typing.
Yeah,
it's a skill.
Find and peck. You're good at.
My grammar is atrocious.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
I would say it's all right. It's all right. It's all good. We all have our things. I can't spend money, so there's that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for watching. If you've watched this far, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. We're getting ready as we do get closer to the season. We'll have even more on the Bills. We'll also be doing some position battles, like places to look out for training camp as we get closer to the start of camp. As always, for Mike Catalana and Dan Fates, I'm Jenna Cottrell. Thank you so much for listening. Hope you all are enjoying the summer heat. We'll be back again next week.